Kelly, Haley has wandered off the trail. Everyone is searching for her now, but we need you to come with us so you can be there when we find her. More than a decade later, rarely does a day pass I don't consider some facet of 3 days that crept at a snail's pace, while the clock hand somehow spun way too quickly and relentlessly. 3 days that both stopped and started my life. 52 hours without knowing how to find my little kindergarten girl. My feisty, blue-eyed baby with an unwavering love of princess dresses and Powerpuff Girls and digging up earthworms. It began with a perfect sunshiny Sunday morning, followed by decadent promises of an afternoon to do exactly what pleased me. My parents were meeting friends to take Haley on a wildflower hunting hike about an hour from home. My husband was at National Guard training, and I was left to my own devices, a few hours at a local film festival. I relaxed into the theater when I heard a voice over the loudspeaker calling me to the lobby. My heart pounded wildly. Was my husband in a military training accident? On shaky legs, I approached a spouse and a friend of some of the hikers who had accompanied Haley. She was missing from the remote trail they'd been on, but everything was under control. The sheriff had been called, and it was just a matter of time until she was found safe. But just in case, I needed to gather items of Haley's to give the search dogs a scent in case she wasn't located right away. After reaching my husband to urge him to leave the military base to meet us, my friends sped me home. I located Haley's favorite little dress-up dress and a nightgown and things that I knew would best carry her sweet little girl smell. And we drove for the forest. Visions of the area where Haley was hiking flooded my mind. She was so deep in the woods, on a trail following a bluff line with more than 100-foot drops into the valley below, right next to the Buffalo National River, a place where a little girl who couldn't swim well should ever be alone. We arrived and we began to wait. My husband eventually reached us and we learned the details of the search. I worked really hard to keep us both calm and rational, and we waited more. All around us was a flurry of activity and a buzz of people. The first trickles of media came in and vied for stories, and things began to get very official. And we waited into the growing darkness. Friends began arriving, and they too waited. While struggling to comfort my husband through the expression of the rawest pain of loss I have ever seen, I somehow galvanized my own resolve. I knew my own outward display of strength was the one thing I could offer to keep those around me hopeful and focused on finding my girl. At 3 a.m., in a cabin offered to us as shelter, I stood alone in the bathroom with the window thrown open, shivering, trying to get some sense of how cold Haley might be, exposed in the early spring temperatures. And I finally let myself cry, facing the stark reality of the situation and obsessing over how lonely and afraid she must be feeling. My mind spun around the fact that she didn't have her stripy blankie, and that was her invincibility against the big world, and I was sick to my soul. Impossibly, daylight came, and the search party grew from dozens to hundreds. As excruciating hours sped toward another evening, helicopters flew overhead. Local and national reporters filed stories about every angle they could uncover, and rumors flew about Haley being abducted, and we waited. And daylight arrived again, with the stark news that the search was going to shift to a more scaled back operation. Perhaps not a rescue, but a recovery of a body. We prepared for what would be like, and I resolved that there was absolutely no chance that I would ever return home without Haley. I could not wander those rooms seeing countless reminders of her footprints in our lives. It would never be our home without her in it. And then I mentally slapped myself to shake free of that fatalistic thinking, remembering what a bold, smart, brave little creature we had been entrusted to raise. We somehow struggled through a packed press conference in a hunting cabin to beg for our daughter's life, appealing to anyone who might have taken her from the woods to keep for their own. I was absolutely drained, but I was still clinging to hope. And while we wept in front of television cameras and we explained to the world what Haley meant to us, two grandpas on muleback were bringing our baby out of the woods. They'd found her lying in a tiny heap, exhausted and hungry and dehydrated, with her little feet dangling in the river. They trekked for miles through rugged Ozark terrain, bringing me back my everything, safe and sound. Seeing her face in the waiting ambulance, I realized what it meant to be her mother. Every ounce of me wanted to pull her back into myself, protecting her any way that I knew how, never turning her loose again. But I also understood that having her back in my world was like experiencing her birth a second time, and much more special birth, because now I knew her, and I knew how much I loved and treasured the person she is. Thank you.